Okay, in this series of responses, we're going to look at very low-level behaviour. So these are a series of responses we can use when students are just off task. So they haven't really become much of a problem in the classroom, but clearly we're trying to nip things in the bud. Remember, needs focused is about prevention. It's much better to tackle a problem when it's very small than wait until it gets huge and then try and find a solution for it. So these are responses to students who are just bubbling under the surface. They're just starting to drift off task. They might be just looking out the window or just starting to fiddle a little bit or just starting to chat between themselves. We need to nip that in the bud. So what sort of things can we do when students are just off task? Well, when I ask this question on seminars and during workshops, I normally get hands going up saying, well, you could offer them some support, or you could just direct them to the work, you could ask them if there's a problem. And that's great. But bear this in mind. At the moment, you've got 30 students all working well, working quietly. They've all got their heads down and they're working away. If I start yelling across the room, Simon, why aren't you working? Suddenly, I've got 30 students off task. They want to know what's going on between Simon and I. Whatever your intervention is going to be, you need to bear in mind that it needs to be less intrusive and less disruptive than the behaviour that you're targeting. So this is just low-level disruption. It's not bothering anyone else in the classroom. So the last thing we want to do is draw attention to it. So one of the first things we can use are non-verbal signals. So I might just catch the eye of Johnny or Simon, whoever's just drifting off, and just direct them to the work or direct them to sit properly on their chair. And with some students, those who are habitually causing us problems, those are regular offenders, we might arrange this in advance. So before I go in the classroom, I might say to Johnny, listen man, I don't want to be on your case all the time. I don't want to constantly have to tell you off in front of everyone else. It's not fair on you. So how about this? If I see you're not getting on with your work, I'll just give you a hand signal, okay? Like this to look this way, or like this to get on with your work. And you know that that's just between me and you. Nobody else needs to know, okay? So those hand signals can work very well. And when it's a private dialogue like that, it's even more powerful because that helps build your relationship up with the student. So our second response is to get up close, get into their space. Clearly, if I'm running the lesson from one position, i.e. the front of the room for the whole lesson, that gives many opportunities for those at the back of the room to just be getting on with their own thing. So I might just walk up closer to where they're sitting, and I might just run the lesson from their area for a while. And just by being close to them, just by being in their proximity, it's enough to give the message to Johnny that I'm watching, I'm aware. And I don't even need to say anything. Just by being there is probably enough to get him refocused on his work. The next one is proximity praise. Remember we were talking about the ripple effect and trying to get a positive classroom. Rather than focusing on what people are doing wrong all the time, let's try and focus on what they're doing right and draw attention to that. It's classroom management turned on its head. We're actually focusing on the positive stuff. So by praising all the students who are doing well and making sure that those comments are heard around the classroom, we've got this ripple effect spreading through, and the other students start to want attention as well. And Johnny, who's just fiddling at the back, is hearing comments like, hey, well done Susan, that's fantastic, I love the way you've done that, and well done you lot for listening to me, I'm really pleased with the way you're paying attention. He's going to hear all this positive attention going on all these other students, and it just draws his attention to the fact that that's what he's supposed to be doing. Next is to offer support. It can never be viewed as confrontational to offer support to a student. So just, Johnny, do you want a hand with that? Are you struggling there? Do you want me to help you, or do you want one of the other students to help you? Johnny, can you see the board all right from where you are? Or do you want to come and sit a little bit closer? Mate, do you want me to go and get that photocopied? I can get it enlarged if you want. By offering some support, you just draw attention back to the work in a non-confrontational way. Limited choices, again, are a non-confrontational way of intervening with a student who's not on task. So by saying, get on with your work, I'm being very confrontational. By saying, Johnny, do you want to use a blue pen or a black pen to get on with your work? Johnny, do you want me to help you, or do you want Stephen to help you get on with your work? Johnny, do you want to do question 5 first or question 1 first? It's up to you, mate. We're drawing attention to the work, we're telling them clearly what we expect of them and what we want them to do, but we're giving them a little bit of leeway, a little bit of a get-out clause by giving them some sort of choice in there. And our last one here is targets. Now, work targets are incredibly effective for getting your students back on task. I've actually had kids shouting across the room at me saying, sir, what's my target? I need to have a target for this lesson. They absolutely love targets because it gives them something achievable to aim towards. If you present your students with a pile of work at the start of the lesson, like you give them an essay to do, right, you've got an hour to do this essay and I want it finishing by the end of this lesson, or you need to get down to question 20 in the next hour, by the end of this lesson it needs to all be complete. For many of your students, particularly the more challenging students, that's too much, and it's too much time as well. They can't keep focused for that amount of time. So a better way to approach the work is to split it into achievable tasks or chunk it down. So I would say to Johnny, I need you to get down to question 2 in the next 10 minutes, okay? And I'm going to come back and check. Or if we're writing an essay, Johnny, really I would expect you to have half a page written in the next 15 minutes, and I'm going to come back and check. And I might put a pencil mark on his book or a pencil mark around the number, the question in the textbook, so that he knows where to get to. That's his reminder. Now, the problem you've got with targets is that obviously some students are going to get different targets. So you get the usual responses, why has he got a smaller target than me? Why do I have to do so much work? Now, needs-focused classroom management is about prevention. And that means we've got to think ahead. We've got to preempt these arguments and do something about them before they occur. So I might take Johnny to one side just before we go into the classroom and I'll say, Johnny, listen man, you've been working really well over the last few weeks and I've got quite a big target for you to do today. So I'd just like you to get on with that. I know you can do it. I know you can achieve it. Is that all right with you? Brilliant. Okay, well, you get on with that then. So I'm preempting that he's probably going to complain about being given a large amount of work to do, and I'm trying to stop it before it becomes an argument. Okay, there's 6 steps to get a student back on task, and that's without even moving into consequences. Obviously, we'd move into step consequences, which we've talked about in another module, but these are things that we can do along the way without getting into the consequences side of things. Okay, I hope that helps.